Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the president and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Virtual Melt University. Spring is in the air. The days are about to get longer, and pretty soon you're going to take me back to the ballpark. The crackling of the bat, the peanuts, the hot dogs, cold Cokes, the cold beer. And speaking of which, we have a very special guest today, my dear friend whom I've always admired as a servant leader, Jim Allen, Senior Vice President of Corporate and Premium Partnerships for the Atlanta Braves. And I've been a Braves fan all of my life, and Jim gets to wake up and go out to the beautiful Battery and the ballpark every day. And he's going to talk about what the plans are for bringing fans back into the seats, but also in the spirit of all of our great guests, he's going to talk about a lot of future career opportunities that our students may not be aware of or have been exposed to or may not have known sort of coming out of this pandemic. We continue to talk about silver linings through the pandemic. That if you didn't lose anybody you loved, and maybe you had a little time to sort of think about things and invent yourself or reinvent yourself or pursue things that you may not have had the time to do, and then that's at every level, whether you're a senior executive of Atlanta Braves, a major league professional baseball team, but originally graduated from Cal State University. I did not know he was a student athlete. Played collegiate tennis. I want to talk about, how he actually got to Atlanta. Been with the Braves since 1993. Has seen a lot of amazing, wonderful memories. Been a part of that. Been part of, one of the greatest business and sports business stories in the world. But the development of the Battery. We were just talking about how the pandemic may have allowed people to get out to the Battery and try it and enjoy it. And then going forward, going to be focused on what we're talking to our kids about, fan engagement, what that actually means now, and what that actually fan experience means in the post-COVID world, digital, cord cutting, all of these crazy things, but also just very involved in the community. And he and I are on the board together at the University of Georgia as well. But Jim, welcome to Virtual Melt University.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and just appreciate you having me on. And I love what you do for these kids that are wanting to look at sports as a potential career path for them. And as you and I both know, we were both there one day, so right. Where we can hopefully give back and offer some ideas and suggestions and ways for them to get their foot in the door and be able to hopefully have careers as wonderful as you and I have had the opportunity to do. I'm always open and willing to try to help out.
Well, it's been one of the most gratifying things is really just when everything hit the fan back in March and April. And obviously it was, devastating for your business, devastating for my business, because we're in the live sports events business and those types of things. A lot of kids who had their summers planned, those had gotten sort of blown up, and they had reached out, and I said, well, hey, let's just, let's continue to try to help the kids. I'd always wanted to take the program, virtual, and I also wanted to keep a consistent, positive, facing in the industry, in an industry that's been kind of wiped out, and right before we were going to do our 18th Final Four in Atlanta, as well as, show the world that we were much more than just an event marketing agency. And so, there were a lot of other business strategies, and give our employee base some other things to do so I could keep them employed. So there were a lot of other strategies that went into this, but it has been probably one of the most gratifying things in my life. But Before we dive into, your illustrious career, your great career, like I said, I wasn't aware you were a student athlete, but we always like to ask our guests where their original passion and drive, um, where did it come from? Where did it emanate, and how did that lead you into a stellar career in the sports business world at the highest level? Where did that passion begin?
So I think a lot of it is how we're raised, and so
Mm-hmm.
my parents, I would put them at the top of that list with regards to drive and passion and all of that. But I grew up like a lot of kids playing sports, and I think you get a lot of that competitive drive from sports as a whole, and not just that, but also the love of the competition and what that brings. So I can tell you, as a lot of kids do, you play sports growing up, and
Mm-hmm.
I had never really thought about working in professional sports. I wish at the time that I graduated, and I'm going to age myself a little bit here, it wasn't as big of a focus in schools as it is
Right.
now.
Right.
And so, there were master's programs for sports management and that type of thing, but, it wasn't where it is today with lots and lots of schools having undergraduate programs and it being a career path for people. So I had never really thought about working in professional sports when I graduated from college. I actually I may be skipping here a step, but I graduated and went into sales. So I was selling commercial fitness equipment. And
Were you still in California at the time?
no, I graduated officially from Fresno State out in California,
Mm-hmm.
but I finished up my schooling at University of Georgia. So I spent my last year at
So how did
UGA.
you get from all the way across the country?
It's a long story, and most people are like, "Why the heck would you ever leave California?" But
Right.
I would tell you, I was a senior at Fresno State, and before I graduated, I wanted to see a different part of the U.S. And so literally, I looked at a map and said, okay, like where is some place that's far enough away that I'll get a different experience?
Wow.
And so I went from coast to coast, and when I got to Georgia, I didn't know a soul. I literally, I showed up the first day, didn't know a single person at Georgia. Not exactly sure why I chose it, other than it was a long ways away from California, and
Wow.
then loved it so much that when I finished up, I ended up staying here. Now, granted, I have to be honest. I met my wife while I was here as well, so she might have been a little bit of a
Made
draw
a little bit
also
of an influence,
to
yeah.
keep me in the South.
Well, that's like I said, I didn't know that story, and so coming out of UGA in Athens, what and I think you made a really really salient point. I mean, like being in sports and sports marketing then and now is like light years different. So I just went to Auburn to be a sports writer. I just happened to fall into this opportunity at sports information and fell in love with the business side. But I really, I wasn't aware, as these kids are, and all these types of things. And so, what was your path that led you into a career with the Braves? Was it a natural sales and marketing progression and path?
So my first year with the Braves was actually 1992, but I worked
Right
on
on.
our game day staff at the time. So I had a friend who actually had gotten a master's in sports management at the University of Georgia. He did an internship with the Braves in '91, and then in 1992, he said, "Hey, they're hiring some game day staff. If you're interested, I could probably get you an opportunity to work there." So I literally would work selling commercial fitness equipment during the day, and then when the team was in town, I would head to the ballpark and
Wow.
literally do whatever they asked me to do.
Wow.
And that was kind of how I I guess you could say I got my foot in the door a little bit. And then after that first year doing that, I got an opportunity to work as an intern for the Braves in 1993. And so I left a full-time job to come work as an intern with the Braves. But, working that first year on the game day staff, I realized, you know what, this is something I could see myself doing and something that I would enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. And so I got my foot in the door as an intern, if you will, in our ticket sales area in 1993. And then did that for an entire season, and then fortunately got an opportunity to get on full time. At the end of that year, we only had 2 job openings that opened up within the organization, and we had a lot more than 2 interns. One of those opportunities was in our community affairs area, and fortunately, I was selected to get that job, and so got into the organization on a full-time basis, working in community affairs. And then, fortunate for me, I'm definitely a salesperson at heart. So, after a year of doing that, the strike happened in 1994, and they literally moved my entire department, with the exception of our department head, into ticket sales. So I got moved from community affairs over to ticket sales, and it fell in line a lot more with my skill set and right. Passion. So did that, and then ultimately we didn't even have a corporate. If you can believe this, we did not have a corporate partnership department until 1997.
I believe that.
And so when that department basically got put together for the first time, I was fortunately given the opportunity to head that up, and have been doing that ever since.
Well, I mean, you certainly arrived at such a golden era with the Braves. Tommy Glavine and Johnny Smoltz and Chipper and Bobby Cox and Sid Bream. I mean, you had a ringside seat to history. Obviously, I'm sure you got to know the great Hank Aaron very, very well. Rest in peace. I mean, just amazing. But you've hit on a couple of big themes that I want to unpack with you, because we talk about this with our students a lot. It sounds like to me that you've always been willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone, going from coast to coast, leaving a job to take an internship, from a successful career. And it seems like that you've always been, had a natural curiosity and not afraid to try new things. And one thing that we tell our students now is that, Jim, I saw a lot of this prior to the pandemic, where our students would come in and, their expectations that they would be the CEO in 2 or 3 months, and then when it didn't happen, they would job hop, and obviously, those days are over with the employment situation going to be like it is for a while. But also, you don't have time to to build any type of feeling of a relationship in 2 or 3 months, whether it's personal or professional. But I do, we encourage our kids to, hey, life is not linear. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Take on some things that you may not be comfortable with right now, and have a natural curiosity about things. Wouldn't you say?
100%. And obviously we grow through adversity. So when you challenge yourself, you push yourself beyond maybe where your comfort level is a couple times. You find that there's sometimes some great learnings that come out of that, and you never know. You may end up finding a niche or something that you didn't know about, or you didn't know you had a passion for and an ability for before you did it. So you never want to become too regimented in kind of where your focus is. And there's nothing wrong with focus, but and if the pandemic has taught us anything, you right. better be adaptable, right. because if you're not willing to adapt, you may get left behind. So 100%, I think, challenging yourself, trying to do things and push yourself areas that maybe you don't necessarily feel comfortable in is can be a really good thing, and something that I would definitely challenge students to think about. And if nothing else, that experience might end up being extremely helpful at some point, somewhere down the line in their careers.
Well, I think one thing, and I say this a lot, but I think the new litmus, from employers going forward to people is, what did you do to improve yourself and others during COVID? Did you binge watch, or did you learn a new skill? Did you rebrand or reposition yourself? And then did you reach out and because we've all, we don't know what the mental health repercussions of this, for 5 or 10 years are going to be. And so we've all had to, understand and have empathy and working in, like a lot of days I feel like I'm in solitary confinement because I'm just sitting here grinding away by myself. But I do think that, I think you just hit the nail on the head, is that, if you didn't lose any loved one in this, is taking the opportunity to really sort of, define or redefine, who you are, and in the position that you sit in. We've talked about this a little bit, and we're all praying that fans are going to return to the stands in the spring, for Major League Baseball, Major League opening. We're beginning to see some green shoots in corporate America. We're beginning to see some states relax restrictions. Vaccines are out there. Herd immunity's out there. I think this thing's been around a lot longer than just a year. I mean, my theory's been around for about 2 years, a year and a half. But a couple things. Talk about from where you sit, what the Braves in Major League Baseball is going to do to I'm going to say evolve. I'm not going to say change the fan experience and the fan engagement. What are they doing? And then within that, what are you doing? And then within that, where are future opportunities for young professionals who want to be in the business side of professional baseball, and as well as the Braves? And here's the other thing, and we talk about this in college, and I'm talking about it a lot right now. The Atlanta Braves are in the real estate business as well with the Battery as they are sports business. The college athletics at Sanford Stadium, Josh Brooks, don't evolve into a year-round destination for Stanford Stadium. They're missing and leaving opportunity and money on the table. But talk about, we've unpacked so many great new opportunities, but they aren't necessarily just in sports now, are they?
No. Obviously we've got a full mixed use development that is part of our ballpark. And when we built it because we did not want to be a place for people to come 81 times a year. We wanted to be something that people would feel comfortable and have a place to go and enjoy, hang out, and experience life with friends and family, and to be able to do that 365 days a year. So, the pandemic has definitely affected, our lives, and, nobody really knows how it will affect it long term.
Right.
Are we going to, be completely, I don't think we're going to be wearing masks for the rest of our lives, as an example, but, are we going to, be a lot more health conscious and washing our hands more and trying to be a little bit safer from that standpoint? I think the answer is probably yes. I think certain things that maybe we're moving in certain directions are going to be magnified and quickened because of this. And one of the things I'll point out is just kind of the contactless, cashless type of an environment. And, from a ballpark perspective, I think we had the highest percentage of fans entering through their mobile devices electronically before COVID. And so we were positioned fairly well from that standpoint, but that's obviously going to be magnified coming out of this. Mobile ordering. We we're going to be instituting that this year. So people that want to be able to order food and via their app and be able to pick up food up, they're going to be able to do that. And so that's not something that we had done previously. We did have the contactless terminals and things like that,
right.
but those are things that I think people are going to be more and more comfortable with. Cashless environments.
Right.
You walk into certain places now and they basically say, like, we're completely cashless, and where you can have less touch points and that type of thing. I think that can be a positive. It can get your throughput done faster. So, if people are ordering stuff ahead of time and they're just walking up, picking up stuff, you don't have those long lines at concessions and things. So I think there's some advantages to it. And I think ultimately that's where things were going. But COVID has probably helped speed those things up a little bit.
Yeah. So the fan journey and the fan experience is going to continue to evolve, and what to your point, what COVID has done and has really sort of accelerated that evolution. So if you're talking to, and you do, if you're talking to a young Jim Allen and they're a student at University of Georgia or Auburn or wherever it is, and we've had some fascinating interviews. Like one we've had was with Michelle McKenna, the CIO of the NFL, and she said, "I don't really hire anybody with a sports background anymore. They're statisticians and they're accountants and they're engineers and they're coders and data analysts and all that." So if a young student is at college now, they don't really necessarily just have to pursue a traditional. And in the college athletic departments, we've unpacked that mental health is a major issue with student athletes. And so, talk about your perspective on, no matter, the campus is the ultimate professional lab. No matter where you are, do something to take advantage and see where these opportunities are emerging, right?
Yeah, well, you and I both know that sales is always the best profession now. So
It is.
So you can never go wrong in sales. I had an old boss that had a saying, and he said, "Nothing happens until something gets sold." And when you unpack that a little bit and think about businesses, whether they're selling products or services, there's some truth to that. And so I love my profession and what I do, but when I think about kind of the future, and really, I mean, it was moving this way beforehand.
Right.
The data and technology areas of sports has been probably the biggest new growth opportunity from a job perspective of any discipline in sports. And we think about data on the, there's really two sides of our business. There's the baseball operations side, and then there's the business side. And in both of those cases, that area has grown exponentially. And so, do we know now that, if this pitcher throws this pitch and he has a spin rate of X and movement of X and speed of X, that's going to get hit at a major league level at a certain clip? We do. And so, the data is just unbelievable what they've come up with and are utilizing on that side of the business to help players be more successful with the abilities that they have. And so every team is doing it. Every team is utilizing it. But then same thing on the business side, just understanding who your fans are,
right?
How to market to them, how to make sure that, the fan that comes out to one game, how do you get them to come out to 2 or 3 games? And, trying to understand who they are, what they like, what their team that they follow. If it's not the Braves, are they Cincinnati Red fans? Do we want to make sure that we're communicating with them prior to the Reds coming into town to try to get them to come out to a game? All of those data points help us do our jobs better. So, I think that, if you're looking at future opportunities from a career perspective, I think, data technology, you can't go wrong in that space.
Well, here's the thing. Here's another thing, and I think you guys have perfected this. I think if you study Atlanta, if you look at the Braves, the Hawks, the Falcons, and the United, you don't necessarily treat, a fan as a fan now. You treat them as a customer. So to your point, you're trying to figure out what makes them tick, what would motivate them to take the time, energy, and the money and the resources to come out to the ballpark. Then they need to have an amazing experience there. But I'm also fascinated too. We're seeing this. The legal wagering emerge across the country. We're seeing, fantasy has obviously always been big, but I can't think of, even how much more fun it'll be to be at, the Battery, and if you wanted to at someday, what is the pitch the pitcher's going to throw, and then it's going to be a strike or a ball, and then is he going to hit it for a home run, and you got $5 on it, and you win, $1,000. I mean, I think coming out of COVID, we're going to see a golden age of sports, a renaissance, and like I said, we were heading in that direction anyway, but now it's been accelerated by COVID, and I do think that you guys are, on the forefront about it, because if you think about it, you go to the Battery, you're milling around. It's a beautiful spring night. There's, everybody's milling around, and they've got a lot of energy in the air, and all this kind of stuff, and you get into the game, and you've got quality product on the field, and the whole in-game experience. I mean, but it is a challenge because fans have a different expectation of how you're going to treat them, right? More so than ever.
Oh yeah, and we put a lot of time and effort into trying to make sure that we're providing the best experience for them when they do come out. And you made the point very eloquently. There's lots of opportunities for people to spend money and be entertained. And so what makes them want to open up their wallets and spend that money, but also invest their time with us? And so we do everything we can to try to make sure that when they're out there, that we do have friendly staff. We do provide them an entertainment quality that they are looking for, and that they leave the ballpark. Hopefully they're Braves fans. Hopefully we've won 10-0. But we all know that we don't control what happens on the field of play. What we do control is everything else that happens while they're there. And those are the things that we really try to put a lot of time and emphasis on, is how do we control that fan engagement and make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide them, a good experience while they're out.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Is that there so much competition for the money and the time and all that now. I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head. But I want to shift gears a little bit, because I think you personify this, and we try to talk to our students really early about this. But to me, you sort of personify like being a servant leader. You're very involved in community, your church, university. I feel like I've always felt like it's so incumbent upon all of us to give back, to inspire, to touch one life, particularly this next generation of marketer. And I think you've always walked the walk in this. But talk about your philosophy, for our students about being what being a servant leader means to you.
Well, I think it's the ultimate goal of anybody that is a leader is to be a servant leader, and if you can do that, you're going to be successful in life. And there's a good book that I read that I really really love, and it's a book called Good to Great, and I'm sure you probably have read it. But one of the things, actually, there were two main themes that when I read that book, there were two main themes that really stood out to me. And from a leader perspective, they were themes that I still remember today, and I still try to follow as best I can. And the first one was making sure that you've got the right people on the bus. So how do you surround yourself with the right folks? And there's a lot that goes into that, and it's a culture fit. There's a lot of things, but no matter who we are gifted with certain abilities, and there's also plenty of things that we're not gifted with. And so how do we as leaders make sure we surround ourselves with people that are gifted in areas that maybe we're not, and that ultimately help the organization succeed in a way that it wouldn't without that. And so the first theme is getting the right people on the bus, and the second theme that I got out of that is these are companies who they're in industries where there's like companies. There may be 5 or 6 companies that are exactly alike. And why was this company, why did they grow at a rate much higher than anybody else? What made them go from being a good company to a great company? And in every one of those situations, it wasn't about the CEO. And, whether you call it humility or whatever, at the end of the day, those CEOs, those leaders realized that they didn't do it on their own. They did it with a team, and where they were able to, they basically gave their team the credit for their success. And ultimately, you don't ever succeed without having a really good, strong team, all pulling in the right direction and accomplishing whatever you guys can accomplish.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's no I in team, and then secondly, that a team is only as good as the weakest link in the team, weakest link in the chain. And I think all of us that run these businesses, and that's why I always tell our young students, I'm like, hey, you may be the lowest man on the totem pole, but you're still an important low man on the totem pole. And I think that I saw a sort of a generational impatience prior to COVID that obviously the job hopping is not going to be as prevalent as going forward, because it's just going to be the unemployment rate is going to be fewer positions. But talk about, and I think you personify this, but we talk a lot to our students about the value of relationships. But what do I mean by that? People say, well, Vince, you represented Coke for 21 years. How have you been able to do that? And it's a very simple philosophy. I never take the relationship for granted. And the first 2 letters of RE, a relationship are RE, and reciprocal are RE. And you've got to groom it, you got to cultivate it, you got to maintain it, and they don't necessarily have to have a transaction or an outcome attached to just continuing to build these relationships. And now more than ever, with connectivity, there's no excuse not to continue to build a relationship. You and I may chat 50 times without there being an outcome to the chat, just maintaining touch with one another. But then one day there may be a business opportunity emerge out of that, but maybe not. But so either way. But I want you to talk about your philosophy of relationships, because you're probably one of the best in the business that I know of.
Well, I would tell you we would not have had the success that we've had without relationships. Everything that we do is built on relationships, and I could not emphasize enough the importance, at least in what I do, and our success from a relationship perspective. I mean, I've had relationships that have moved from company to company, as an example. I had one individual that I did business with a certain company, And obviously we grew that relationship. They knew that I was just as committed to our partnership being as successful for them as it was for us.
Right.
And they left that company, went to another one, and ultimately we found a way to work together again. And then they left that company, went to go work for a third company, and we worked with that same company, in a new relationship that made sense for both of us. So our success is long-term, built off of relationships. Everything goes back to that. And I can tell you that just as we were talking about the customers from a ticket sales perspective, the same is true with customers from an advertising standpoint.
Bingo.
There's a million opportunities for these companies to spend money. And, ultimately it has to make sense and work for them. But, relationships a lot of times will carry the day with regards to why they're spending their money with you rather than somebody else, because they know and trust that you're going to have their best interest at heart. And, it has to work for the Braves, but it also has to work for the partner. And any relationship that is one-sided will not be long-term. And that's
never.
We pride ourselves, when you look at our corporate partners, we pride ourselves on those partnerships that we have, because the majority of those are people that we've been partners with forever. And when we moved to the new ballpark, literally we started from scratch. We didn't have one agreement that carried over from the old ballpark to the new ballpark. But you look at the new ballpark and you look at the partners that we have, the Cokes, the Deltas, the Home Depots, the Georgia Powers of the world. They've been partners with us long before I got here, and hopefully they'll be partners with us long after I'm gone. And it's relationships and making sure that you're building those, in the right way, that you're doing right by other people, and ultimately that comes back and helps you at the same time.
No, I think you just hit the nail on the head, and because you just never know. I'm also a big believer that you got to continue to put that goodwill and that positive energy and good karma out in the universe, because you never know when it'll come back around to you, and particularly with the speed of which it comes around, now. But if a young aspiring student is reaching out to you, or a young aspiring college graduate, Jim, I tell this story a lot. You would be shocked at how many times that I'll get a generic email to careers@meltatl, to whom it may concern, here's my resume, and I need to make X. And you know what I do with that resume? I don't even look at it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you got to be in a cave with bin Laden not to be able to find Jim Allen or Vince Thompson, and not to know how to find us, and how to hit our emotional cues, and how you're going to bring value to this subject. But so what gets your attention and what turns your attention off if somebody is reaching out to you as a relationship, mentor, mentee, job, internship? What do you see that gets your attention? Because you're a busy guy.
Yeah, and I try to never forget that I was exactly in their position at one time. So that's something that I try to make sure that I never am too busy for folks that are interested in wanting to try to figure a way to get into the business. And obviously we can't hire everybody from a Brave standpoint, but I might be able to give them some advice or direction that might be helpful, that they can use to find something. But what you said was important. It's reaching out and doing your due diligence, and kind of understanding that you're asking for a favor, if you will, from a guidance perspective, and you want to know that person isn't they're not just cutting and pasting 50 of these to different people. I've got three daughters. I've got a couple that are one's in college, one's a senior in high school, and obviously from a work perspective, I've always told them, like, you go into an interview, and in a way, reaching out in that capacity is no different than reaching out in an interview. It's like, do your homework. I mean, understand,
right,
who that individual is, understand what that company does, what they stand for, and you want to make sure that you go into that conversation completely prepared. And if you do that, you're going to be a lot more successful than if you are just kind of throwing something out there generically.
Well, I try to tell our students that this is not a job application. This is a job process. This is a job audition. And there's so many intangibles that they're communicating to Jim Allen of what type of employee they will be. And again, I say this all along, one of the big litmus tests is going to be, what did you do to improve yourself and others during COVID? And that's going to be able to allow you to weave a tapestry or a brand story about what you did and how that could relate to bringing value, to a job with the Braves, and another one of my pet peeves is that, I love sports, I want to go to work for Melt. Well, that's great. I mean, I love sports too, but how are you going to bring value to Melt or to the Atlanta Braves? I mean, that's in researching, to your point, being prepared, because you're getting inundated and you're going to move on fast if they're not showing you these things, right?
Yeah, it's 100% accurate. That we want folks that have that initiative, that drive, and are willing to go the extra mile, like figure out like where they can make a difference, and ultimately be able to showcase that.
Well, here's the thing. We're not asking them to do anything that you and I don't do every day in our job, right? I mean, you got to be, you're making sales calls at the highest levels. You're servicing fans at the highest levels. You're working with the highest professional athletes in the world. I mean, it's, we're doing the same thing. And that's what I keep trying to tell our students is, like, Vince and Jim were once where they are, but we're still doing the same thing that we're telling them to do. We're just doing it at a higher and a different level. But this has been tremendous conversation. I always wanted to get you on. Such an honor. You've always been so good to me and my agency, and this has been great. Jim Allen, Senior VP of Corporate Premium Partnerships, been with the Braves heading into 3 decades. He has seen it all and has been part of one of the biggest sports business transformations in the planet with the Atlanta Braves and the Battery, and will continue to be on the leading edge of all of these major transformations in the world of business, sports business. So, Jim, we really appreciate your time and wise words of wisdom to the students of Virtual Melt University, and I hope I get to see you soon at the Battery in the ballpark.
I hope you do as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and as I said from the get-go, thank you for everything you do for these students. I hope they appreciate it as much as I would have if I had been in their shoes way back when. So thank you for everything you do, and it was an honor to be a part of this today.
Thanks, Vince. We hope you've enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with a new edition of Melt University 2021.